If you are out on 78th Street early enough in the morning, you'll see packs of school kids filing, filling, and clustering into public school number 1 in New York City. Some have an earnest desire in their eyes. Others have a similar look, but slightly influenced with peer pressure and a sense of fear. Even more of the young people in this wave of traffic have a look of discontent, a look of displacement and disinterest. They are scared. They sneer and cower from healthy competition. They rebuke their more gifted peers and create cycles of doubt, apathy, and poor scholarship. Some are there to say hi to their friends, others for athletics, art, or drugs. But what no one in this crowd realizes is that they are being given a beautiful gift. Not one realizes that he or she is being handed an opportunity to participate and interact with something far bigger than themselves. These children don't understand that education is the opportunity to learn, to commune with God, to understand creation, and to converse with the great minds of the past. The British historian F.M. Tropion describes our state of education in this manner. Education has provided a vast population with the ability to read, but unable to distinguish what is worth reading. This current state of education is our own fault, and is a crucial problem of our generation. We have entirely separated education and learning. We have taken a system of learning, of thinking, and attempted to create a homogeneous system where if one passes a series of tests, stamps, and achievements, at the end, one will become a productive labor in society and be able to make more money than someone who did not reach that same level of success. This form of thinking is not reminiscent of colonial America, of Rome, of Athens, or of Jerusalem. This form of thinking is from that Soviet-influenced socialistic mindset. Aldous Huxley's pessimistic prediction of the future of genetic engineering and societal roleplay in Brave New World is not all that different from our current state of educational procedures and measures. I will argue that this form of education in America is flawed and needs to be fixed and to find freedom, efficiency, and success in the world of the free market economy. The irony is that America, the land of opportunity and free market competition, has lost sight of this competitive edge when it comes to the important task of educating the next generation. When our nation was still young, the colonists determined to establish an education to give themselves a continued stability from their lives and relatives in Europe. So, in keeping with their communal origins, the colonists established communal schooling. The children received the best education they possibly could gain from their parents. Education was generated from the home, family, and community. Education carried on like this for a generation or so, but in the 1630s, a rash of free schools developed across the country. In 1635, the first free school opened in Virginia. Free schools grew in popularity in the North, but the Southern schools stuck with the traditional method of education, being provided by the families and relatives. These free schools picked up speed, and soon the Massachusetts Law of 1647 was passed, and made the initial step in institutionalizing free schools. The law institutionalized that every town of at least 50 families hire a schoolmaster who would teach the town's children to read and write, and that all towns of at least 100 families should have a Latin grammar schoolmaster who would prepare students to attend Harvard College. Free schools were now an entity outside of the family and had a constant goal to become college preparatory schools. Education's trend toward universality was further established in 1690 when the New England Primer was published and became the most widely used school book in New England. Ever since then, over a series of events, education has become more and more systematic, and the educational decisions have taken place further and further away from the home. This shift has been expounded further in recent times with the busing acts that were signed into law in the 1970s. Education has become less valued and consequently less successful. We need to bring back education's value. We need to bring it closer to home and make it more competitive. Our education system should reflect the individuality and the benefits found in our free market economy, not the ineffective shell of a communist-based system. I will now provide reasoning to support my argument that the primary and secondary education system in America, particularly the public education system in America, needs to be reformed. I will be arguing that our current education system is too accessible, inefficient, and has a lack of vital, community-building ties. And at the end, I will propose a solution to these problems. The education system in America is too accessible, and in its accessibility, it has no longer become something that is sought after by a majority of our population. But why should we desire education? What makes it desirable? Is it precious, valuable, or scarce? Everything about our society answers the resounding no. A diamond is valuable because it is precious. Diamonds are not handed out in Sierra Leone or on Jewelers Row in Manhattan. Spouses don't give each other diamond rings because they were found on the street. Diamonds are valuable and appreciated because there is a limited quantity of them. They are hard to come by, they represent something beautiful, and they are something that you can have your entire life. For these same reasons, we should value education as a culture, but we will never be able to see the beauty of education unless we treat it like a diamond. Because other than its accessibility, it shares all the same characteristics of diamonds. Education represents something sacred and beautiful. It represents our ability to commune with God and to discover His sanctity and majesty in nature. Also, education is something that we can have our entire lives. When does learning begin? Can we pinpoint a certain age at which people begin to learn? No. We begin learning the day we are born. As we grow older, we have an ever-increasing desire to learn more. So we must fill this God-given desire with a true education. We have come to an intersection. We are born with an innate desire to learn, but our culture is telling us that learning is not important, and in doing so has created a dangerous dichotomy. We have come to see learning and education in two separate lights. Learning is a hobby pursued by infants and grandmothers, and education is the societal stamp of approval to simply pass you on to a higher ring of education so that you can make more money when you finally graduate. Our society will never see education any differently unless we make it valuable by making it less accessible. The main thing we need to do in order to make education less accessible is to make it less accommodating. I'm not necessarily arguing that the Department of Education shut down 50% of the public schools in America tomorrow. What I am arguing is that our government should let parents and students take initiative and put their educational future in their own hands. The great author C.S. Lewis said, quote, "It is scarcity that enables a society to exist." In addition to being too accessible, my second critique is that too much of education is funded by the government, and not enough by free market industry, that is chartered public and private schools, or by out-of-pocket expenses, that is private and home schools. This inefficient spending has caused several problems for our public education system. A reason why the money should be more focused and spent in a free market fashion is because the bureaucratic layers of the government are far less efficient than the proven test of capitalism. The inefficiency of government and public education is something that I have seen firsthand. For 13 years, my family and I have lived behind Brandywine High School. Brandywine High School is one of the best public schools in the state of Delaware. In fact, a recent survey by Delaware Today ranked Brandywine High School as the 8th best public high school in the state. However, the environment at Brandywine is not at all conducive to learning. Most of their money in renovation campaigns from the government goes to their athletic departments and various facilities. Year after year, their scores continue to dwindle, and they are wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars. Delaware Today said that the money that Brandywine High School spent on one student during one academic year is a little over $10,000. This is more than several private schools in the area. For example, Tulloch's Classical School's tuition is under $7,000 per student, and our SAT scores are consistently ranked in the top 5 in the state of Delaware. An example of the success and efficiency of charter schools would be the Charter School of Wilmington. The Charter School of Wilmington spends roughly $8,000 a year on a student, and is the 42nd best public school in the nation and consistently generates SAT scores that are similar to Tulloch's. My point in mentioning these small examples is that there are real-life statistics and examples in our own backyard that show that the money and programs being spent on education is not the heart of the problem.